If we annihilate it, we're erasing a library of cosmic history, memories of dead stars, lost civilizations, and what if it's lying? Renault snapped. What if this plea is a trick? Venn stepped forward. You've seen the crew. You've seen what the whispers do. This isn't malice, it's pain. It's screaming for help. The captain turned away, his reflection warped in the observation glass. Beyond, the nebula pulsed, its colors deepening to blood crimson. My orders are clear. Evacuate non-essential personnel. The Aurora will handle the rest. As Renault left, Harlow gripped Venn's arm. We're not letting this happen. He met her gaze. We need a new plan. I might have one, Lang muttered. He pulled up a schematic, a resonance wave generator, designed to destabilize plasma fields. If we modify the shuttle's engines, we could create a frequency, disperse the nebula's consciousness, let it unravel peacefully. Quan frowned. That's theoretical. So is talking to a cloud of gas. Lang shot back. But it's the only alternative to bombs. Venn studied the schematic. How long? 10 hours. Maybe. Do it. The team scattered. Venn returned to his quarters, the whispers swelling around him. Stardust clung to his skin, cold and electric. On his desk, Roan's journal lay open to the final page. You don't kill what you don't understand. He traced the words. But I do understand now. And I'm sorry. Chapter 8. The Eventide was unraveling. Crew members roamed the corridors, their eyes vacant, mouths moving in silent unison with the nebula's song. Bulkheads dripped with luminous fluid, condensed stardust, seeping through the vents. Alarms blared as systems shorted out. One by one, Harlow found Venn in the lab, his hands flying across a holographic interface. Lang's modifications are failing. The shuttle's core can't sustain the resonance frequency. Then we amplify it, Venn said. Use the nebula's own radiation, that's suicide. The exposure, we're out of time. He gestured to the viewport. In the distance, pinpricks of light flickered. The Aurora fleet, closing fast. A scream echoed down the hall. They sprinted to the infirmary, where Dr. Quan knelt beside a convulsing crewman. His skin had turned translucent, veins glowing with nebula light. It's accelerating, Quan said. The radiation, it's rewriting their DNA. Harlow backed against the wall, her breath shallow. Elias, it's in me too. I can feel it pulling. He gripped her shoulders. Stay with me. We need you. I don't know if I can. Lang barged in, his tool belt clattering. Shuttle's ready, but we've got another problem. He threw a feed onto the screen, a security camera showing Captain Renault in the armory, arming singularity warheads. He's going to fire early, Venn realized. To impress command, Quan stood. I'll delay him. You'll die, Lang said. She smiled faintly. We're all dying, Mr. Lang. At least let me choose how. Before anyone could protest, she slipped into the hall. The team fled to the docking bay. The shuttle hummed, its engines jury-rigged into an unstable resonance generator. Lang hesitated at the airlock. I'll stay. Monitor the frequency from here. Harlow shook her head. You'll be trapped when the bombs hit. Better than vaporized in that tin can. He tossed Venn a drive. Coordinates are preloaded. Get to the heart of the nebula. It'll guide you. As the shuttle detached, Venn watched Lang vanish into the smoke-filled corridor. Eventide's hull groaned, its spine buckling under the strain of internal explosions. The nebula loomed ahead, its crimson maw yawning wide. Why is it red now? Harlow whispered. Fear, Venn said. It knows what's coming. Chapter 9. The shuttle plunged into the nebula's core. This time, the visions were unbearable. Venn saw galaxies birth and die. He felt the nebula's first death, a star collapsing, its mind splintering across the void. He witnessed its rebirth, as a sentient cloud, condemned to remember every iteration of its existence. Agony, ecstasy, loneliness. Harlow screamed beside him, blood trickling from her nose. Make it stop! It's trying to show us, Venn shouted. He gripped the controls, steering toward a pulsing singularity at the nebula's heart. A black hole, the source of its torment. It's anchored here, trapped by gravity. The resonance generator sparked, overloaded. We're losing power, Harlow coughed. Not yet. Venn opened a comm channel, broadcasting directly into the nebula's frequency. We're here to help. Show us how. For a moment, silence. Then a voice, not words, but meaning, flooding his mind. You are small, Yes, Venn whispered, but you called to us to remember, to be known before the end. Images erupted, the Eventide's crew, their minds woven into the nebula's song. Captain Renault's ambition, Lang's defiance, Quan's sacrifice, all of it, preserved. Your kind remembers in fragments. We remember everything. Harlow gasped. It wants to die seen, not erased. Venn's eyes burned. How do we free you? The resonance, amplify it through my heart. The black hole's coordinates flashed on the nav screen. Venn input the sequence. The generator can't handle that strain. It'll tear the shuttle apart. Harlow gripped his hand. Then we make it a funeral pyre. The nebula's voice softened. You will die. We know, Venn said. Why? Because no one deserves eternity. The shuttle surged forward, swallowed by the black hole's event horizon. Around them, the nebula began to sing. Chapter 10. The shuttle hurtled toward the black hole at the nebula's core, its hull groaning under the strain. Venn fought the controls, the gravitational pull twisting space itself into a kaleidoscope of fractured light. Behind them, the Eventide erupted in a chain of explosions. Captain Renault's singularity bombs detonating too soon, too close. The resonance generators overloading. Harlow shouted, her voice barely audible over the alarms. We've got minutes before it blows. Venn didn't flinch. We need to reach the event horizon. The nebula's voice, its strongest there. The black hole loomed, a maw of pure oblivion. The shuttle's panels buckled, sparks raining down as radiation scorched the air. Harlow coughed, blood speckling her sleeve. The nebula's stardust had infiltrated her lungs, her bloodstream. Her skin glowed faintly, a map of dying constellations. You will perish. The nebula's voice thrummed in their minds, mournful and vast. This is not your death to claim. It's not yours either, Venn growled. He reroute power from life support to the generator, ignoring the oxygen warnings. Harlow now. She slammed her fist on the ignition. The resonance wave erupted from the shuttle, a sonic supernova rippling through the nebula's tendrils. For a heartbeat, the entire cosmos seemed to still. Then, chaos. The black hole shuddered. The nebula's crimson hues bled to gold as its consciousness unraveled, memories spilling into the void, supernovas birthing civilizations, dying stars whispering secrets, a trillion lives flickering in the dark. The shuttle's viewport cracked, but Venn didn't look away. He watched the nebula remember, and in its final act of being known, he understood this was its gift, its farewell. Elias. Harlow grabbed his arm. The generator was melting, molten alloy pooling at their feet. We need to eject. No, we ride the wave to the end. She stared at him, then nodded. Together they input the final sequence. The shuttle detonated, but instead of fire, there was light. A silent, radiant burst that painted the nebula and galaxies yet unborn. Venn felt his body dissolve, his mind unspooling into the resonance. He wasn't afraid. The nebula's voice wrapped around him, not as a whisper, but as a chorus. Thank you. Then, nothing. Chapter 11. Venn woke to darkness. His body ached, every nerve raw. The air stank of burnt wiring and blood. Groaning, he rolled onto his side and saw Harlow slumped against a shattered console, her chest rising faintly. They were alive. Somehow. The resonance, it let go. Venn helped her stand. Not just it. They limped through the wreckage, finding Lang in engineering, half-conscious beneath a collapsed beam. Quan was gone, only her medkit remained, coated in nebula dust. Captain Renault's body floated near the armory, his hand still clenched around a detonator. The crew gathered in the observatory, those who'd survived 4 out of 32. No one spoke. Later, they gathered in the mess hall, the survivors sipping tainted water from cracked bulbs. Lang broke the silence. What happens now? Harlow stared at her hands. We tell the truth, about the nebula, about what it means to choose. Venn said nothing. He stepped into the airlock, sealed his helmet, and cycled the doors. Outside, the void was alive. The stardust shimmered, coalescing into fleeting shapes, a human figure, a star map, a spiral galaxy. He reached out, and for a moment, the dust curled around his glove like a hand. You remember, when he returned, Harlow was waiting. You saw it too, didn't you? Yes. What do we do now? He looked at the stars. We listen. Chapter 12, 1 year later. The memorial station hung in orbit around the newborn stars, its silver hull etched with names: Roan, Quan, Renault. Lang had insisted on adding the latter. He was a bastard, he'd said, but he deserved to be remembered. Venn stood at the observation deck, a vial of nebula dust glowing softly around his neck. The Eventide survivors had scattered, some to colonies, some to Earth, all carrying traces of stardust in their blood. But he'd stayed. Harlow joined him, her hair now streaked with premature silver. They're calling it the second dawn. Those stars, they weren't here before. No, Venn said. They're hers. A final act of creation. The nebula had left more than memories. Its death had seeded the void with star nurseries, nebulae blooming in its wake, young, mute, alive. Do you think it's still out there? Harlow asked. Some part of it, I mean. Before Venn could answer, the console chimed. A transmission, source unknown. They played it, a single note reverberated through the speakers, a perfect harmonic, neither human nor machine. On the screen, stardust swirled into a word. Thank you. Harlow laughed, tears glinting in her eyes. Yay, you too. Venn gripped the vial. The dust inside pulsed, warm against his palm. Outside, the new nebula shimmered, its light gentle, unafraid.